So, welcome to Salesforce Mars Colony. This is a multi-video series where we are creating a project that models a Mars colony. This is spurred by a large interest personally in the new space exploration efforts and space commercialization that are really being pushed by people like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos, and many more smaller companies. So, hope we learn a lot, and we're going to learn some functionality and get hands on. And so now we'll jump into our org. So, welcome back to the Salesforce Mars Colony. As you see here, I'm just logged into the schema builder, and there are some new things here. So, let me just start with the changes that were made, and I'll go through and explain basically what has changed and why. So, first, just some small changes. I added a dock number to the spaceport. So, basically, that means we could have now up to 4 docks or places where spaceships can land at the spaceport, because obviously we can't have an unlimited amount of spaceships at this small spaceport. So I did that, and then also I made it a unique number. You can see right here, and you just click this box unique, and that means that so now I have dock number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so you can see now there's only dock numbers, and so since these are unique, I can't park a second rocket at dock 4 because something else is already at dock 4. Also, the inbound rockets, they get to take a dock number because they have to land somewhere and they need a guaranteed landing spot. So that's one change that I made. Another change that I made, not super important, but bed number here. I made the bed numbers unique. So basically, there are 4 beds, and there's not really much of a purpose to that, I don't think. It's just you need, each bed is a unique bed, and right now the goal is just to solidify as much data. So when we start working with all this data, I know it's not going to overlap in weird ways or go anywhere. So if it's possible to make something unique, I just went ahead and made it unique. Also, as you may remember, when it came to the bed stations, Penny California's name was cut off. So I edited that object. I just went into the bed station and this bed owner here, and I changed the length. It was at 8 or 15, and I just changed it to 20. So now it could have more characters for people with long names. I can go ahead and make that unique as well, just so I make sure we have that. So something a little more interesting, I went to the food station here and I made a formula field called days until food expires. And this is going to be used once we start having some functionality. So basically how I did that, I just went over to the elements and I dragged over this formula field here onto this object. And we could see is that it gives you an option for the return type of the value that I want. So I knew that I wanted just to know the days from when the food expires to when it was delivered or created is how we're using delivery date. And so it's just expiration date minus delivery date, and that equals how many days until the food expires. It's just an easier way to view data. So I go to the food storages here now, and I modified the fields that I want it to display. And so we're no longer displaying expiration date and delivery date, although these are on the object, but now we're just displaying days until food expires. So at a glance in this list view, I could see how many days. So like I know, okay, bananas are expiring in 7 days, 100 of them. So eventually we have 4 people, 4 astronauts, and we'll have some functionality to say they eat a certain amount per a certain amount of time, and this is how many days till it expires. So we need to order new food, and then a spaceship needs to bring it, and all of that kind of stuff. So that's very far down the line. We're just going to make it more and more complex as we go. So that is the first formula field in here. I was looking for somewhere else that I could use a formula field. I'm sure there is one, but I didn't really see anything else just yet. And most notably, the change that I made was I added a solar farm It's pretty key for a moon colony. The energy has to come from somewhere. So solar panels, that's definitely the way to go. And so I'm calling it just clusters of solar panels. I created this object just dragging from the elements, put it over here. I have a checkbox on the object called is active. I'll just pull up the object so we could see it. And so while we're here, I can go ahead and create my list view. But so I got a new, and so if I'm installing a new cluster of solar panels, I just name it cluster 4, and I can make it active or not active. Maybe it's there, but it's not active. I know solar panels are pretty high maintenance things, especially in this kind of context, so maybe it wouldn't be active all the time. And while I'm here, it's always good to create list views. So I'll call solar farm, and that'll be a list view. And what I want to see on this list view is basically just the panel cluster, and if it's active, that's all the fields I have. So you see I have 3 clusters here, and they're all 3 active, and they're inside my solar farm. Now, one thing interesting is I have this lookup relationship here with battery plant. Batteries are going to be very important because let's say we have moon rovers or Mars rovers, which astronauts can drive around in. Like people who are doing the field exploration, they'll probably want a little moon rover or something, and it will be battery powered. So where are the batteries coming from? So the batteries will be coming from this power plant, which is coming from the solar farm. So each cluster is going to have a battery attached, and it'll serve as just basically a battery charger. The same way we plug things into the wall to charge them, we plug batteries into the clusters to charge them. So a couple of fields that I put on the battery plant, which is another object, is the battery percentage and the location. The battery's location would depend on which cluster it's on. So let's look at the battery plant object itself. This view, you have different kinds of batteries. I put all these in here. So you have a high performance battery, mini battery, spare battery, another spare battery, and a standard battery. And these are the percentages of those batteries. So again, eventually we can make some automations that would say each kind of battery would improve its charge over a percentage of time. So these could drain them. They can drain and charge through an automated process, and it will also show their location. So we know this high performance battery is on cluster 2, and this is on cluster 3. This one's on cluster 3. So there's 2 mini batteries on cluster 3, and a standard battery on cluster 1. And the 2 spare batteries aren't on either cluster. They're just charged, so they're just in inventory, we'll say. So something interesting, as I was just saying, I'm looking at these, we can have a pick list and just call these. Yeah, we can just have a pick list for this and call these different kinds of batteries. That would actually help us later on too when we're trying to kind of automate how the batteries work. So I'm going to the schema builder. I'm dragging a pick list over, and I'm going to call it battery type. And we're going to have high performance. We'll have standard battery, mini battery, and spare battery. So these will be our kinds of batteries. Now we already have this one, we already have our first field here called battery. So let's go to edit object properties, and we'll say battery name. So right now where we have the type of battery, we're changing that to battery name. So we're going to go give all those batteries fictional names, and then we're going to use the pick list to define the type of battery. So I'm going to go to the page layout for this battery now, and make sure the new pick list is on here. So you see battery type is up here in fields. So I scroll down in the page layout, and I can put battery type. I'll put battery type right under battery name. Now I save that, Now this will be a little exercise in editing data because I do have these records now that need to be changed. So I go in here, or even better, I can just change my list view to show battery type, which I said will go after battery name. So I save that. And so battery type, it will give me my pick list options here. So I could see this is the high performance battery. I'm going to make this the high performance battery. This will be the mini battery. This is also a mini battery. Spare battery. Another spare. Oops, and a standard battery. So now I can give these all names. Let's say we have Energizer. Energizer Plus will be basically a brand of our high performance. It doesn't matter what we name them because we already know what type they are. I don't know how many of you used Amazon Basics for batteries, but we'll call that mini battery. Spare battery. Let's call that Radio Shack for any of you who remember that. This is basically just going to describe the brand of battery. This isn't as important as the battery type. And also, you see these are very editable, the list views. And standard battery, let's just call it Duracell. So now I save my list view. See, and now we have pick list here. Just to show, I'll create one more Radio Shack spare battery. So new battery plant. So eventually when we need new battery plants, the way this is set up, or at least the name, I may go change the name so this is a little bit more descriptive because this is specifically new batteries, not battery plants. So let's say we have a spare battery from Radio Shack with 88% and it's just a spare battery. And so if I wanted to, I can use, because of that lookup relationship, I can attach it to one of the solar panel clusters that we have. But it's just a spare battery, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. Just to see the other side of that relationship, if I go to solar farms and I go into, let's say, cluster 3, then I can go to related and see cluster 3 has 2 batteries. They're 2 Amazon Basics batteries that it has. And I can just view those right there. If I wanted to go in and edit or see more of them, I can click in here and it'll show me, okay, there's a mini battery here with 42%, and I can go look at the other one as well. One thing I want to do while I'm here is also create the list view. I think I have one, right? Okay, so I do have them. So I have 2 actually. I have solar farm and solar farm view. Let me delete one of these. And then I can go to solar farm list view, and all I need to do is pin that. One thing I want to look at here is edit object properties, and I want to change this from battery plant to batteries because this is more descriptive. And then the object is going to be called batteries. Now when you change the name of objects, yes, it can cause problems. So I'm assuming we don't have too much going on that's going to have too much of an issue. But see, now we have battery, and then it's going to have batteries, plural. And let's go see if that changed anything too badly. Okay, so every time you make a list view, just make sure to pin it so you don't have to make the same list over and over. So it looks good. Let's see if our batteries are still related properly since I changed the name. Let's go directly through solar farms. So cluster 1, let's see if it has the batteries on it. It does. So cluster 1 has a Duracell battery. Cluster 3 has 2 Amazon Basic batteries. You see now they're called batteries. Much more descriptive. We can click into it and see there's the battery. That's right. See, so from the Basics battery, it doesn't have any related items. It's just a battery, but the solar farm cluster, it does have related objects. So that's just a quick lesson for myself and for anyone watching in lookups, lesson in lookups. And basically, I found definitely the hard way a couple of times now that if you change object names, especially when there's relationships, then it causes a few things to go haywire. You just have to know how to go back and check what should be checked. So at first it gave me some weird messages and it kind of threw some things around, but all of this is back together. So I think this is about as concrete as I'm going to get with the foundation of the colony. And then from here, I'm going to put it into an app. I think that will be the next video, is creating an app. So to create an app, I just want to quickly give an explanation of that on the whiteboard. Okay, so in Salesforce, an application is defined as a collection of tabs. So we're going to have Salesforce. And what the colony really is going to be is an app, an application. So we're going to have one place where we go in, instead of going all these different tabs every time and looking around for these different objects in places, we're going to have a large box. And it's going to be a collection of all of our tabs. Each one of these are going to be the objects that we made. Remember, some of them have lookup relationships. So some are going to be together like this. All these are going to be in one place, so we can start to treat these as if they were all one thing, or they all work together. It's an application. It's going to be all together. So from there, that means we'd be able to have permissions, where we give permissions to each of our astronauts. And the purpose of permissions in Salesforce is to open up access to stuff like this. If we were to create an app, then we'd want to give permission to use this app to each of our astronauts. And then also something that we'd be able to do, and I guess it just helps me having it all in one place to visualize what kind of automations we would have. We'd use automations, and we would use workflow. And so that's kind of going to be the functionality when this starts to come together. So as you can see, if you remember the initial image from the first video of what our colony looked like, I had each of the 5 different areas, now 6, and this kind of looks like it. But now these are all custom objects, each one of these, and they have relationships, and they all have their purpose and their fields and descriptions. The gathering of these things together becomes an application, and now we just have to basically give it the power to turn it on so that it functions. And that would be the very start of our colony. So anyways, this so far is our Salesforce Mars colony. I hope you guys are enjoying or learning something. I sure am, and I'll see you in the next video.